You know, some TV shows become absolute legends, and others, well, they become cautionary tales. Today, we're going to dive into one of television's most spectacular flameouts, a show with a can't-miss formula that was gone in just over 2 years. This is the story of Texas. So, this is the big question, right? How does a show with everything going for it, a famous star, a hit show to launch it, a huge network pouring millions into it, how does that completely crash and burn? What went so wrong so fast? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the very beginning. All right, so let's set the scene. It's 1980, and the network NBC is, well, they're desperate for a new daytime blockbuster, a real hit. So they decide to bet the farm on a spin-off from their crown jewel, the long-running and super popular soap opera, Another World. So on August 4th, 1980, Texas hits the airwaves. And listen, this was a huge deal. We're talking massive fanfare. This wasn't just some new show they were trying out. It was an event. And get this, it was the first daytime soap ever to launch with hour-long episodes right from day one. The message from the network couldn't have been clearer. This is going to be a monster hit.
But here's our first big red flag. The show's creators, their original idea was for something totally different, a historical drama called Reunion. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, the network executives, they weren't having it. They were obsessed with the runaway success of CBS's primetime hit Dallas. All they saw were dollar signs, and they demanded a pivot. Forget Reunion, just give us a daytime Dallas. We want oil tycoons and backstabbing, and we want it now.
To make sure they had an audience on day one, the network used the classic spin-off playbook. For months leading up to the premiere, they introduced all the new Texas characters on Another World. The thinking was simple. Get the millions of Another World fans invested in these people, and of course they'll follow them to the new show. I mean, on paper, it's a foolproof plan. What could possibly go wrong?
But this multi-million-dollar gamble wasn't just built on copying a rival's show. No, the entire thing was built on the shoulders of one single powerhouse star.
And that star was the one and only Beverly McKenzie. Her character, the deliciously evil Iris Corey Carrington from Another World, was the absolute anchor of this new series. She was so crucial that she got a unique honor right in the opening credits. The announcer didn't just list the cast, he would specifically boom, "Texas, starring Beverly McKenzie." The entire show rested on her shoulders. So you have the Dallas clone, the spin-off strategy, the superstar, and what happened? It didn't matter. The show stumbled right out of the gate. In its first season, Texas pulled a pretty dismal 3.8 rating. And for a show with this much money and hype behind it, that number wasn't just a red flag, it was a 5-alarm fire. And to really put that number in perspective, just look at this. Texas wasn't just underperforming, it was getting annihilated. In its 3 p.m. time slot, it was up against CBS's Guiding Light, which more than doubled its ratings. And then there was the real monster, ABC's General Hospital, which was at the peak of its Luke and Laura fame. They were pulling in an 11.4 rating, almost tripling the viewership of Texas. It was a bloodbath. So the show just kind of limped along for about 16 months, trying to find an audience and fix what wasn't working. Critics were complaining that the main character, Iris, who was supposed to be this great villain, had become way too tame. But then, in November of 1981, the one thing that this show absolutely could not survive happened.
Yep, the show's anchor, the one star the entire series was built around, she walked away. After just 16 months on the air, Beverly McKenzie quit. The entire gamble had officially failed.
And the fallout, it was immediate and it was catastrophic. The show lost 1 million viewers, not over a few weeks, not over a few days, overnight. For a series that was already on life support, this was the death blow.
So, with their main star gone and the ratings in an absolute freefall, the network and producers went into full-blown panic mode. They just started throwing everything they had at the wall, hoping something would stick.
First, they tried a complete rebrand, slapping the new title, Texas: The New Generation, on it to try and get younger viewers. Then they opened up the checkbook and started poaching popular young actors from the rival soaps, hoping to steal their audience. And then, and this is my favorite part, they launched this wild Indiana Jones-style treasure hunt storyline. It was just a desperate, chaotic, creative scramble.
Did any of it work? Nope, not a single thing. The audience that left with Beverly McKenzie wasn't coming back, and new viewers were not tuning in. The rating slide didn't just continue, it actually got faster. This leads us to the final chapter in the show's short, troubled life. With cancellation basically guaranteed,
NBC made one last, desperate chess move. A move that would seal the show's fate for good. Their logic was, hey, if we can't win the war in the afternoon, let's just retreat to the morning. So they moved Texas to 11 a.m., hoping to find a less competitive time slot and maybe a fresh audience.
But in escaping the frying pan of the afternoon soaps, they had jumped directly into the fire. So the question is, what ratings monster was waiting for them at 11 in the morning?
Oh, just the biggest daytime show of all time, CBS's The Price is Right. They had traded one ratings giant for an even bigger one. It was a hopeless fight. This little soap opera couldn't make the slightest dent against the game show Goliath.
And this timeline just shows you how quickly the end came. After Mackenzie left, it was a rapid, unstoppable decline. That disastrous move to 11 a.m. was the final nail in the coffin, and just 8 months later, NBC pulled the plug.
The show's very last episode aired on New Year's Eve 1982, and in a strangely fitting meta-storyline, the characters, who all worked at a local TV station, learned that their station was being bought out and they were all being fired. And in the very last scene, the remaining characters gather together, they raise their glasses for one final bittersweet toast and just say, "To Texas." It was a poignant end for a show that once had so much promise. So that leaves us with one final thought. Was Texas just a victim of a string of bad luck? Or was a show that was conceived as a copy, built entirely on a single star, and then thrown into a brutal market, simply destined to fail from the start? It really seems like the show's biggest problem wasn't bad luck. It was a bad foundation from day one.